Welcome to We the World and our 2025 MLK Manifesting the Dream event. Each year, we take time to remember Martin Luther King Jr. and his beloved community. And each year, we are thrilled to feature the many people and organizations who have taken action to be of service, not only in January and February, but all year round. We at We the World welcome you to take action and be of service at we.net/MLK from January 15th to February 28th. Please join us in being a part of this annual celebration and consider being of service in your communities and with us. Of course, donations are very appreciated at we.net/donate. My name is Yana Larson, and I am the HR Deputy Director of We the World. Our moderator for today's discussion is Mr. Laurence Pete. He is a retired educator with a background in radio and television broadcasting, theater, and music. While he currently lives in Fort Worth, Texas, he is a native of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and is a graduate from the University of Tulsa with a Bachelor of Arts, concentration in theater and voice, known for his baritone vocals. Pete is one of the founders of Theater North, Tulsa's oldest Black theater company that has been enlightening and educated audiences through storytelling for the past 4 decades, which is still operating after 40 years. Pete currently owns and operates Press On Production, specializing in voiceovers and camera work, including television camera operation at the Potter's House in Dallas, Texas. Having an affiliation within the Spirit Christian Church, Pete has developed a profound interest in the environment and environmental justice. For fun, as a prior swim coach, he enjoys swimming and cycling.
Well, she got me straight on that. That's cycling. That's right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you. Thank the following WE, the W campaign of WE, the world unites and amplifies the efforts of people, organizations, and global movements working for the common good. Also want to thank Green Chalice, Ministry of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. The purpose of the Green Chalice program is to encourage and assist local congregations, DOC offices, and assemblies who wish to live out their faith by caring for creation. The next is the National Convocation for the Christian Church, an expression of the church that promotes reconciliation, social justice concerns, and transformational ministries by equipping and training clergy and laity leadership and empowering congregations to do mission and ministry for the 21st century. The next is the Fellowship of Black Disciples Clergy Women. Black Disciples Clergy Women are ordained, non-ordained seminary students and ministers of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. We are committed to excellence in ministry, connecting and encouraging one another, self-care and mentoring, and each of you who is taking the time to listen to us today. These are our speakers today, very qualified, bona fide, beautiful women, extremely intelligent. First is Apostle Sharyn Cosby. Apostle Cosby holds a Master of Divinity from Phillips Theological Seminary, is on track to receive her Doctor of Ministry in Transformational Leadership and Intercultural Community from the same institution. She completed her Clinical Pastoral Education Residency at Jack C. Morgan VA Hospital in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and has earned the title of Board-Certified Clinical Chaplain for the National Association of Veteran Affairs and Chaplains, NAVAC. It's a bad sister here. Currently, she is the founder and servant of In the Spirit Ministries and later established the In the Spirit Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, along with the Oklahoma Family Empowerment Center, which serves as an outreach for her ministry. Apostle Cosby also acts as a climate ambassador for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, Green Chalice, and serves as a liaison with the National Convocation. With over 14 years experience in hospice care, she has held the roles as chaplain, bereavement counselor, ultimately the director of pastoral care for the We Honor Veterans program. And in this capacity, she leads bereavement counselors and chaplains provide exceptional pastoral care and hospice patients and their families, while overseeing enhanced spiritual end-of-life care for veterans. Apostle Cosby is also known for her leadership, integrity, compassion, humor, particularly her marginalized communities, facing issues such as climate justice, hunger, food scarcity, homelessness, criminal justice reform, and immigration. The next speaker is Reverend Shelia P. Spencer. How you doing, Rev Spencer? You doing all right today? All right, okay.
I'm doing wonderful.
Okay. Spencer is a preacher, teacher, and a writer who uses her gifts to inspire, educate, and empower. Boy, she sounds like me as a teacher. She is the author of several publications, including Gratitude Journal, Recharging Spirit, Reviving Body, Renewing Soul, Affirmations and Bloom, Affirmations for Guidance, Reflection, and Inspiration, and Self-Care is My Divine Right, along with other works that call readers to embrace holistic well-being and intentional self-care. An ordained minister from the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, Reverend Spencer has served at the local, regional, and general levels of church. She is also an award-winning speaker, spiritual director, and world traveler whose ministries combine creativity, authenticity, and commitment to transformation. Born and raised in Los Angeles, she holds an undergrad degree from the University of Southern California, a master's degree from California State Seminary. She is currently pursuing her doctoral degree, furthering her lifelong dedication to learning and growth. Boy, I feel out of place, a little bachelor's degree. Lord have mercy. Okay. Reverend Spencer's work extends beyond the pulpit, and she is passionate about her space for reflection, healing, and renewal. Whether writing, teaching, or speaking, she leads with intentional focus on gratitude, self-care, and spiritual wellness. Thank you. Thank you, both of you ladies.
Thank you.
I've got a couple questions I want to ask you a little bit. Ladies, since I've got these very intelligent women, I want to, since we're dealing with Martin Luther King, and we realize Martin Luther King was also one of the first advocates for environmental justice, and we salute him for that aspect. But before we get into that, even I had to find out. I'm a little curious too about exactly what environmental justice is. So before we go into discussion, Apostle Sharyn, can you share with our listeners what environmental racism and examples of ways in which it's experienced?
Yes, thank you, Laurence. First, I want to start out by just saying that King recognized the link between health and the environment. He believed that health in the communities and the environment were directly linked, um, especially when we're talking about underserved communities. And he highlighted the fact that segregation is harmful to everybody and that racially divided cities experience high levels of pollution. So he paved this way for environmental legislation. So when we talk about environmental justice, what we're talking about is, let me give you the United Nations definition first. The United Nations says that environmental justice is securing our right to clean, healthy, and a sustainable environment. Environmental justice can involves fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of whatever their race is, their color, their national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, policies. Especially, there should be no group of people should bear a disproportionate share of the negative impact of environmental consequences that result from industrial, governmental, and commercial operations or policies. That means there has to be meaningful involvement from everyone, that people have an opportunity to participate in the decisions that affect them about the activities of their environment and, yes, their health. Public contribution can influence the regulatory process and the decisions. We have to look at environmental justice as involving three things: clean water, clean air, and food. And I want to say not just food, but sustainable food. And when I say sustainable food, I'm talking about food that is produced and consumed in a way that minimizes the environmental impact
and supports the local economics of that community. It's grown, it's transported, it's packaged in ways that avoid depleting the resources and producing greenhouse gases and over farming. I was doing a study this past week because we talked about this year 2025 being the year of Jubilee. And part of that study, we talked about the fact that every 7 years we let the land rest
Mm-hmm.
so it could replenish itself. But in our days of overconsumption, we're not letting our land rest, and it's not replenishing itself. So I want to look at environmental justice as being meaningful to everyone being involved, and everyone having access to what I would call the necessities of life: water, air, and food. Nobody can live without them.
That's right.
But environmental justice um, is different from environmental racism. While environmental racism includes justice, but environmental racism means that there's unfair exposure or lack of access. So justice means access, racism means lack of
Mm-hmm.
access to clean air,
Mm-hmm.
clean water, clean food, sustainable food. And this happens mainly in marginalized communities that are exposed to environmental hazards, and whether it's intentional or not, uh, it happens. And it is usually in communities of color
Mm-hmm.
and communities where low income families live.
Okay. Well, can you give us some examples of that?
Well, yes. Some environment racism examples would include like toxic waste dumps.
Mm-hmm.
Toxic waste dumps are often placed in minority neighborhoods.
They had one here in Dallas where they had shingles. These
Yes,
shingles were everywhere, and they had to remove all of these different shingles from these because they were poor neighborhoods,
right.
and they finally removed them.
And it's the same here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we have the city dump located in North Tulsa, which is predominantly Black neighborhood. And um, now there is an influx of Hispanic, but it's still people of color. City
Mm-hmm.
dump, the um, recycle plant is there.
Yeah.
The car recycling plants are there. So we just have a lot of different dumps in communities of color. Industrial facilities is another example, are
Mm-hmm.
often placed in minority neighborhoods. And let's not forget food desert.
Mm-hmm.
Black neighborhoods have food deserts or food insecurity. One of the things I noticed about North Tulsa did not have a community grocery store until just a few years ago. And it's a small grocery store, and
Mm-hmm.
often they say that the shelves are empty.
Now, is that the Oasis?
That's the oasis.
Okay.
Um, they do have a lot of dollar stores, a lot of Dollar
Mm-hmm.
Generals where
Mm-hmm.
people can go get little quick stuff, but not healthy food.
Mm-hmm.
Not having access to fresh fruit and vegetables. Lack of access to outdoor spaces where people can exercise, walk. Air pollution. Black people often are exposed early on to high levels of particulate pollution.
Mm-hmm.
Again, lifting up North Tulsa, the airport is there, Tulsa
Mm-hmm.
International Airport. So therefore, you have planes flying, and people are exposed to diesel
Mm-hmm.
fuel fumes. Um, some other examples when we think about Flint, Michigan, I know everybody's heard in the news about Flint, Michigan, and the water crisis, where lead was in the water. What
Mm-hmm.
what happened? What was the impact of that? Well, 99,000 Flint residents were exposed to lead, and at least 12 people died.
Mm-hmm.
But lasting impact was people are now experiencing health problems like rashes and hair loss, um, water odor, quality, and taste. And I tell you something that's is funny, but it's not funny. But I was traveling in Mississippi, and I went to the Delta, and I stopped at Kentucky Fried Chicken to eat. And I asked for a cup of water. And the girl handed me a cup of water, but it was brown. I was in the Delta. And I asked her, I said, well, what's this? She said, well, it's water. And I said, but it's brown. And she said, but we're used to it. And I'm saying, I'm not. In communities of color, people often get used to having water that's not clean.
Black.
That's environmental racism at its finest. So we see that if you have facilities that are putting pollutants in the air, you don't have clean food, you don't have clean water, that's environmental racism. And it's happening all around the United States in communities of color.
Well, thank you. I have a question for you, Reverend Shelia. I appreciate you ladies so much. This is good information. And as I said, I'm a little ignorant on some of the things myself. Reverend Shelia, let's talk about women of color, especially Black women, and environmental racism. How does it disproportionately affect women?
You know, and I'm going to allude a lot of the things that Apostle Sharyn has already shared. I was reading a quote by Bernice King. Reverend Bernice King was the daughter of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And the statement that we're so familiar with, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And one of the things that she alludes to is that her father's words also echoed and included environmental racism, because we know that pollution's burden disproportionately, the burden of pollution disproportionately falls on those who are already experiencing systemic barriers, which includes Black women, women of color. We look at the things that Apostle Sharyn has alluded to, also look at communities that Black women, women of color are more likely to live in communities affected by lead, affected by pollutants, and also that women who are caretakers, so including being caretakers for their own children, but yet at the same time called to be advocates. So this affects us in a great way. And
what do you mean by that? What do you mean when you say that?
It affects us in such a huge way. And I think that's been the catalyst to Black women taking action.
Okay. So what are we doing? What are Black women doing?
I'm so glad you asked that question. Before I talk about some of the work that Black women are doing, I must lift up the ancestor. I must lift up the name of Hazel Johnson. Hazel Johnson was considered the mother of the environmental justice movement. And she began literally in her own backyard by starting a group called People for Community Recovery in her Chicago neighborhood. And what they did was address the hazards, the environmental hazards that were happening with the toxic waste that was being dumped in their own community. She became an advocate, advocating for those three basic things we talked about: clear air, clear water, and her thing was clear soil, which connects to food. And she was one of the ones who really laid the groundwork for the future of Black women to come. So I must lift up the name of the ancestor, Hazel Johnson, and honor her. We have policy. There's woman attorney Jackie Patterson. So she's the founder of the Chisholm Legacy Project. And what that is, it's a frontline community climate justice leadership group. But I actually met attorney Patterson when she was working for the NAACP, and she was the leader of the Environmental and Climate Justice Program. And what she did in that role, she made members all over the country and the world aware of policies, aware of the inequity of toxic waste, aware of what's going on in the community, and through policy, encourage people to become aware and also become advocates. And I think about, we've talked about Flint, and there's another woman, Latricia Adams. Her group is called Young, Gifted, and Green. It was formerly Black millennials for Flint. And she started this. And this group is a group that connects with other groups and addresses the inequity of lead exposure, which happens disproportionately in Black communities and communities of color. And what I love about her story is this was birthed from the fact she was an educator in Flint and outraged at an educator who was aware of what was happening in Flint and outraged by the lack of response. So she became an advocate. I think about her. I think about ways that people are creative, like we talked about food insecurity. Leah Penniman, who is the co-owner of Soul Fire Farm, which is a place for food justice. She trains people with farms and food justice and addresses food insecurity and is an active advocate. So, whether we thank the ancestor Hazel or we thank those who make policy, like Attorney Patterson, we thank people that are grassroots, like Latricia Adams, or those who are creative, like Leah Penniman. These are some of the ways that Black women are actively fighting and advocating and doing the work of fighting against environmental racism, environmental injustice. And for many of them, it began in their own backyard, pun fully intended.
Okay. Well, are some of the policies being implemented?
Definitely. When we look at, and first of all, it's awareness of policies. And I think that big thing starts with being aware. One of the things about access is being aware of it and being aware of the power that you have, being aware of the power that you have to speak to your local elected official, or taking the power in your own hands and starting organizations and being advocates and empowering people. We don't have to wait. You have the power to start in your own backyard.
And I'm going to start that too. I'm going to start me a garden soon. So thank you for that. That's a confirmation. All
Yes.
right. Okay. Now, thank you, ladies. I got another question here. Just a few more questions I want to ask. There was also an incident here in Texas where HEB is now currently wanting to, they're kind of a little hoity-toity. They have they have places around here. One is in Burleson, but they're thinking of building one in the Dallas area. But some of the advocates, particularly in the Black, and that's in a more affluent community, but some of the people in the Black community are wondering why couldn't they do the HEB in South Dallas, where you said you could get fresh food, everything that you need. It's just something to consider. Like it could be a small, it didn't have to be a Walmart, it could be a smaller store where you could get fresh produce. But I guess you just have to follow the money sometimes on it. All right, anyway, okay, we're going to see how that transforms itself. There can be no manifestations of King's Dream without environmental justice, which includes justice for Black women. What can we do? And what can we do as a people? And just anybody just get in some last comments that we may have.
I was thinking, I'll just start within your own backyard, pun fully intended, starting gardens or collaborate with people who are doing the work. We collaborate, my local church, we have a garden. People volunteer. Volunteers come in from all over the city. We grow the vegetables and we donate them to a shelter. One of the things I like to tell people is what keeps you up at night? What is your passion? What is that inner question? What is your passion? And leaning into that. And finding your passion, starting your own backyard, and connecting with groups. And we've named several other groups that are sponsoring this call, that are sponsoring this panel, connecting in with people that are doing the work.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback on that and say one of the things that I believe firmly we need to do is just be aware. We need to know what the problem is so that you can begin to address it. So, awareness and education. I want to encourage everyone who's listening to take climate ambassador training. You can go to Green Chalice. which is a ministry of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Or you can go to Bless Tomorrow and sign up for climate ambassador training. If you're a disciple of Christ, you can just put the DOC in there in the training so that you can take the training for free. But you'll get information. Knowledge is power. We've said that over and over again. Knowledge is power. And this training will empower you with the knowledge that you need to begin to get into the fight. And when I say get in the fight, the next thing is I believe we need to act. Write your legislators, attend city and county meetings, find out when they are making decisions that will affect your community. People have to go before the county, at least in Tulsa, they have to go before the county and the city if they want to build certain things in that particular area. We need to get rid of some of the waste management facilities concentrated in an area. I know we need to have them, but they don't all have to be concentrated in one particular area. We need to look at a lot of these auto recycling places and salvage yards. North Tulsa in my city you can go down a street and find 3 or 4 down one street. Seek to have ordinances that only one is allowed in so many square miles of a particular area. So we have to get knowledge, we have to act, we need to join in the fight. And when I say join in the fight, I'm thinking about fighting for the right to survive and not just thrive. Not just to survive, but to thrive. People are surviving, but they're surviving with chronic illnesses that in many ways could have been avoided had they had clean water, clean air, and access to food. And we've mentioned the idea about doing something for ourselves. I think, Laurence, you said you're going to start a community garden, start a garden for yourself. But one thing I think about is co-ops. If you don't have a grocery store in your community, maybe some people could co-op together and build their own grocery store. Those are just some of the ideas that I can think of. And of course, vote. We need to put people in office who have our best interests in mind. And I want to say one thing. This happened in the news today. I'm watching, and I can't even think of his name right now. But one of the new cabinet appointees said that he believes that $7.25 is an appropriate number for the minimum wage.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I say I like to see him live off of $7.25 an hour. So we need to push and push.
He's a billionaire, and he's a billionaire.
Yeah, he's a billionaire. Yeah, he can't live off of $7.25. And so even if you have a grocery store, if you're one of those people who make too much money to get federal benefits like SNAP or food stamps or whatever they call it in different communities, there's too many people who make just a little bit too much money.
Too much.
But not enough to really survive and thrive. So people need a livable wage so that they can go to that grocery store and buy fresh fruit and vegetables if they're not growing it themselves. So that
$7.25 ain't gonna get it.
No, it's not gonna get it. So I mean, I was a little upset when I heard that, and so I had to walk away from the television. So I did not see it. But we need to push to have those things put in place. Join in the fight to make sure that people get a livable wage. Just because we may make more than the minimum wage, we have to be concerned about our brother. And
it's only by the grace of God anyway, huh?
Yes, it is by only the grace of God. And we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers, so we need to look out for one another.
Yes, we do.
So, that's all I have to offer.
Well, have you got anything to say? You want to wrap this up for us? You got anything to say, Reverend Spencer?
No, I was thinking of a quote by Dr. King that said, we have to do more than register and vote. We
Mhm.
also have to create spaces and create leaders who embody the virtues that we respect. So, in addition to starting locally in your own backyard, pun intended, connect
Yeah.
with established organizations, advocate for change, mentor, make sure that we mentor and provide spaces for voices and to be that example. And that's the ultimate part of self care. I believe in divine self care, caring for ourselves, spirit, body, and soul
Mhm.
means being advocates for environmental justice because that's who we are, part of who we are holistically.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
definitely.
ladies, this has been very eye-opening for me, and good information. The world needs to see this. A lot of folks need to see all this information, and I really appreciate you so much. And I guess we're going to wrap this up with Mrs. Jana's going to come back on. Jana,
Yes,
you ready? Okay.
here I am. Thank you so much for being here for this wonderful conversation, and thank you, the audience, for joining our broadcast today. Remember, please join us and take action to be of service at we.net/MLK. Donations are gratefully appreciated at we.net/donate. Goodbye from all of us at We the World.